evolution of the industry has changed to where record keeping is tremendously more important.
Made a new rule and everybody had to start keeping records.
Everything's documented.
Again, third and final session of the day, the collision of data and agriculture. Challenges create the greatest opportunities. What is the greatest opportunity for data? Because that's a big, huge question, but it's the world that we live in. Anybody on the panel have any perspective on that as far as what is our greatest opportunity?
Well, I think there's a lot of opportunities. I was talking with Clark just before the session about the information that's on the farm and what people can do with information, being able to analyze it in your farm, make better decisions. I think there's a lot of really creative things happening in agriculture today.
Yeah, I would agree. That if you take a look at some of the where we're at today with information as opposed to where we could be and should be in about 5 years, it's going to be a tremendous fundamental shift. When I work with growers on a one-to-one basis and industry leaders on a different level. And so I'm helping growers make decisions as to technology and other aspects of whether it's succession planning or whatever it is. The more information you have, the better that decision can be. And in particular, where I help out in the tree fruit industry a lot is pack out information, size, grade, not necessarily yield, but it's with that kind of information that you can then start doing partial analysis or partial format and analysis to take a look at profitability. And having that information on site-specific as you can is, I think that's where you win. And so I just did a survey of people that download a software program I have. And I wanted to know what accounting systems they use and how they use it. Majority of them don't use any. They don't use accounting systems. And when they do, it's QuickBooks and it's P&L, profit and loss statements. That's it. If they want to do anything with the analysis on their blocks, they use Excel. Excel ain't going to work in the future. And so it's how do you take information from the field on your desk or iPad or iPhone, and how do you then make those decisions? I think this is going to be quite exciting in the next 5 years.
Yeah, we talked a lot about process and efficiency and using information to make good decisions as the fruit arrives at the processor and what markets it's compatible for and regulation requirements and sales opportunities. But what I was excited about with Ag Tools, the software you had mentioned, is the ability to take all that information next year and then go back and look at it. So it's that analysis we heard about during the lean session, which is, okay, now we have all of this information about not just good horticultural practices and what we've been able to achieve in terms of results, but then now let's run scenarios with it. And you were talking about scenario opportunities as well, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Right, and so I can take these scenario opportunities. Once you have the baseline information, then you can go out and start projecting out in 5, 10, 15 years about different aspects of your production system. I do a lot of this pack out stuff, and if you have a technology that can increase fruit size by 10%, what does that mean? Well, with even an Excel spreadsheet's going to be difficult to get you to that point. But if you can shift grade by 10%, what does that mean? And then you start looking at these different inputs and outputs, and I can show you time and time again anywhere from 100. Just today, I just gave a couple of talks and showing them those kind of differences, anywhere from $150 to $7,500 an acre, depending on variety, depending on pack out, and depending on yield.
That's pretty significant.
It is significant, and that's where the money's going to be made. You're in a very high input-output industry than any other agricultural sector, and then throw on that you market your product by size and grade. It's not bushels of wheat, it's not bushels of corn. It is size and grade. Certain sizes have premiums, certain grades have premiums. And so your objective is how do you get the best, what we call target fruit, that fruit that returns a return to you over and above fixed and variable cost. How do you get that fruit to be all target fruit? And you don't do it without some kind of database to start from.
Yeah, data analysis, and which is what a great project to put the next generation on, right? An opportunity to evaluate that data. And we've got discussions in our business just about this information that we have and where we can take it and what opportunities there are with it.
Yeah. And I think one of the most powerful things about data is the fact is just to start using it, because I think the opportunities you're going to figure them out. It's the boots on the ground. You're going to come up with ideas. I mean, my best, the best ideas are coming as you sit there and think about the data you just used. You might be riding the tractor, okay,
Right.
or whatever, on it. But you're going to generate the use of the data and find ways that nobody else is going to think of. So without using it and starting, okay, you hold yourself back.
Yes, most definitely. Another question that we've kind of jotted down here, how can data be used across generations? Because now that we're on the farm, you talk about all these different demographics from baby boomers to Gen Y. How do we talk that common language?
It's a good question. I think having a common language is a good place to start. I was able to visit with a lot of students over the last summer, and in fact, we hired some really bright students to come work at our company, and they've got this great technology at school, and then they're coming to work, and they're looking for, how do I incorporate that into my business, into your business, into my career now? How do I make a meaningful contribution? And so I think maybe having a common language is a good place to start, similar technology.
I'm just thinking about the baby boomers, my generation, and we're not used to that kind of. So maybe it's the X and Y sitting down with the baby boomer who still has the checkbook, by the way,
Right.
and
They
is
still
running the
do.
business, and then trying to glean as much as they can from that individual, and then how do they take information they have in from both directions, and then how do you manipulate it to build your algorithms to make good decisions.
And is that part of a process, a discussion that you could apply lean practices to bring those two together and to have that discussion?
Oh, certainly. I think Lean, develops that collaborative thing. But the best thing that Lean does is it puts people in the position they are. They understand. We talk about that standard work, but it's also they understand, what my function and my role is and how I go about it, my best practice. But if they recognize what someone else's best practice is and leave them develop it, they will learn from it. And and someone else's best practice, may be using technology that you're not accustomed to. They're going to bring things forward to you that you really haven't maybe considered before, and vice versa. Okay, I mean it's a part of having an open mind and closing that communication gap.
Well, one thing I find very refreshing, coming to these Hort shows year after year is to work and talk with many of the vendors out there, because it absolutely surprises me. Some of the new technology that's always coming online, stuff that we hadn't even thought of or envisioned or what have you, now that we have our AGx Scout Glasses version 1.0. 2.0 will actually be a little more high-tech and will actually, download into the database. But that's the thing that truly amazes me, is the progress of technology and how data will, come in through all these other avenues, whether we're getting, like I said, leaf analysis or these high-tech things that'll tell us as we move on down the road. But one of the other things that I hope that you get, or is this another takeaway message from what we're trying to describe here, is data isn't just one directional. It isn't just us farmers collecting it and then making our decisions on it, or passing it up the food chain for traceability. It's also coming back. I mean, I want to have a relationship with my consumer on a very personal level sometime in the near future. I want them to know they're eating my apple when they buy it off the store shelf. I want them to know who I am. I would love to be able to get direct feedback from that consumer back to me. Did they enjoy the experience of eating my product? If not, what was wrong with it? And I will try to adapt and change into the future. So that's the power of data, and that's also how these future generations are going. That's what they're going to expect, because they live immersed into this whole field of data where they swim through it. And so
You describe it as a lake, right? Which I think is a
yeah, it's a data lake out there, and we're all paddling around in it. And the object is to kind of understand what all the parts and pieces in here. And I'm very excited to do further work with Dr. Sievert, especially on being able to take this information that I get in printed form from my packing houses, called my packouts. And it would be great if we standardize that, download that, stuff it in there, go ahead and start doing scenarios, figuring out what we're going to do for next year. Right now I'm trying to figure out, okay, is this block going to get top work? Is it going to get pushed out? Because what are my projected returns? But I have to take a look at, all the sizing data, where the market is right now. I mean, it's absolutely mind-numbing when you try to do it in your head. But we have tools out there that are being developed that will make this analysis possible, and then kind of dumb it down for us baby boomer, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Well, and I think you made an excellent point, Brett, is that, we have the data to make the analysis. There's a lot of analysis to be had. It certainly does impact the pocketbook and the profitability of the business. But the part I really resonated with is that it's not a linear flow of information. It's not just sending information upstream. And I think that was a major pivot point in our company when we looked at what is an awareness platform? How can we exchange information between stakeholders? We have not just growers generating information, but we have academics, and we have spray programs, we have advisors writing detailed recommendations that are site specific to those growers, then growers that are adapting those for multiple locations and weather environments, and all of that communication happens in a very natural state. The information needs to also flow in that natural state. Mm-hmm. Not to mention when you layer on the packers and the shippers and the market and the sales desk, right, and the regulations and all of that comes into the conversation, it's not a linear process anymore. It very much is a conversation, mm-hmm, and a platform that supports that conversation is really the next step to take in any business.
Right, and you think about the multiplication of this data complexity, because that describes essentially a farm. But then think of every one of the packers out there that work with several hundred of these farms, and it's all that multiplied, stacked on top of each other, and it's real time, and it's now. They've got to have it, and there's perishable fruit sitting on the dock, ready to go, shipped out the door, and is it going to be compliant with whatever market it's going in, and all these different things are flowing around, and it's like I said, it's absolutely dizzying the amount of data and how quickly it has to move through the system nowadays. And it has to move through accurately, consistently, and we just have to make sure that it happens. Otherwise, we lose out on a potential market or profitability, and everything we use to project our future returns based on all these other wonderful things, if it gets rejected and comes back, it just isn't worth anything. And that could all just be a failure of the data stream and not of what we did out on the farm. So anyway, we're getting really close to our time where they're going to have to kick us out here, but are there any other questions or just general overall comments on what you've all kind of gleaned from these last 3 sessions? Because we've kind of hit you with a lot of different concepts, hopefully broadened that view of what data is, what it can be used for, and kind of where we think it might be going in the future.